Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha with Ice Cream Fitness here. It is time for part 2 of the Monday Q&A. But hold on, let me give you guys a bicep shot first. Alright, let's get right into these questions. Do you find it quite expensive eating a high protein diet over here in the UK? Disregard horse meat. As to the latter, for a lot of you who aren't aware, I don't know how much of the news of this got over to the US, but we had some fiascos with horse meat being found in some of the food from Tesco here in the UK. And no, I did not eat any of that, so I can safely say I did not eat any horse. But as to the question of the protein, yeah, coming from Texas, I will say that sources of protein here in the UK are quite a bit more expensive than they are back in the US. You're not going to get $1.99 a pound chicken breast over here. It's not going to happen. In the equivalent of US dollars, I would say I probably spend about $7 or $8 every day just on my protein sources. So it's relatively expensive. However, on the other hand, carbs and produce in general here are actually pretty cheap in comparison. Fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, things like that are actually pretty well priced, but protein is very expensive unless you're just drinking liters and liters of skim milk. All right, next question. Do you think mind-muscle connection is important, i.e. your novice program squeeze chest on bench press over just focus on bar speed? Well, on my novice program, I've already explained the technique I want you to use, and I want you to focus on technique rather than bar speed or mind-muscle connection. Now, when it comes over to mind-muscle connection, I have a slightly different view on what I think that is over what is oftentimes the traditional view. I don't think mind-muscle connection or feeling something in your target muscle has to do with concentrating on the muscle. I think that it is something that you develop over time as a result of learning proper technique. And I think that once you have learned the correct technique and form on a lift, that you're going to feel it in that muscle more. And I think that's what mind muscle connection is more of doing the lift correctly or in a manner that is stimulating the muscle through technique. It's just going to make you feel it more in that muscle rather than a true focus on it. And to me, that's what mind-muscle connection really is actually just perfecting your technique to get the desired results and to get the feel that you want. And so then going back to something like my novice program, you will eventually get that by just learning the technique in the way that I explain it. All right, next question. When you carry out a reset, you state that 10% should be taken off the bar, followed by the adding of 2.5 pounds successfully to build the load back up. Is that the same for all lifts, as a 10% reduction on the squat and deadlift would be a larger poundage compared to other lifts? Would you recommend a percentage increase when building the lift back up, or should the increase remain at 2.5 pounds? I'm going to assume you're talking about my novice program because a lot of times weight resets aren't done on 10%, but my novice program is. And I actually have that set up at 5 pound increases, not 2.5, so it's 2.5 a side. Now, that being said, a lot of intermediate and advanced programs work off percentages, but no, my novice program, it works off of a flat increase. And the reason for that is because I want a gradual build up every time. I don't want you making huge jumps. And actually, that is still ends up being huge jumps because on my squat, I have you add 5 pounds to your squat every time you train. That's 3 sessions a week. That's 15 pounds a week. That's 60 pounds a month if you don't fail and have to reset. So it actually is still pretty dramatic. And no, on that program, you have to remember, just like with everything else, accessory lifts and secondary lifts, people put way too much focus in them and too much effort. And that's why I've left them the same and I haven't given them a different programming pattern because honestly, they're not as important as your primary movements to your overall growth. They're just added volume at the end to stimulate extra workload into some muscles that might need some extra work to balance the program out. But 90% of your muscle growth is still coming from those core basic lifts, those first 3 or 4 lifts done in each session. So it's not really necessary to run them different. It's done that way because the real focus is on the primary lifts, and I'm not overly concerned about your progression on the secondary lifts as long as there's a general upward trend. So I hope that kind of answered your question, as I think this was directed more towards my novice program, because a lot of other programs, they do work on percentages for more advanced lifters. All right, next question. Dana White, president of UFC, has Meniere's apparently, and his surgery went bad. Thoughts? This is a tough one, and again, I know you asked this because I personally suffer with Meniere's, and so this is very relevant to my channel because we're talking about a sports figure who has the same medical condition that I do. I think in Dana's case, though, he was unilateral. He only has it in one ear, and I have it in both. I've had it in one ear since I was around 15 years old. But I developed it in my second ear, and that's when it became debilitating for me, and I became medically disabled and got stuck in bed all the time. As far as my thoughts, it's really hard to say. This is such a tricky medical condition that doctors still do not understand the full causes of it. There's still no cure. Even the surgeries that people get for this condition are only there to remove symptoms. They slice and dice on you hoping to remove symptoms, such as cutting nerves and things inside your ears so that maybe some of the symptoms go away because you're not getting certain data going to your brain. So these surgeries are not a cure, and they don't always work, and that's part of the problem. And as someone like me, I'm not a candidate for surgery at all. I'm not going to get into all the details, but I do not qualify. I'm not a candidate for successful surgery. They don't think there's even a 5% chance that it would work for me. And so, I mean, Dana's going to do what he has to do to sort this condition out, and I think he's going to go on to more drastic measures because the surgery didn't work. And you know, best of luck to him. I mean, I suffer with the same condition, and honestly, there isn't a whole lot you can do. I mean, there are things you can do that help, but nothing works for everybody. Something that helps 1 in 3 people with this condition, the other 2/3 of people, it's not going to do anything whatsoever, and that's part of the problem. It's just so random in the way it reacts. It's so it's unpredictable, and it's even unpredictable in the treatments for the symptoms. So it just is what it is. All right, last question. And this one's going to give a little love for my female subscribers. Starting strength versus strong lift 5x5. Which is better for girls considering aesthetics and overall fitness? You know, honestly, I think these are both good programs, and I would say that for a female interested in just getting into serious training, who even if she's done a lot of fluff training in the past and is now serious about her goals, I don't think either one is a bad program. However, for overall aesthetics, I would lean more towards a strong lift 5x5, even though these are very, very similar programs. I would still recommend that the female get the starting strength book because it's a useful tool for beginners just in learning the lifts and technique and things, and then probably lean towards her following the strong lift 5x5, mainly because it has more volume in it, and more overall volume is going to give more hypertrophy. And I think that's what a female lifter should probably start with. Just like with a male lifter, they should focus on building as much overall hypertrophy as they can early on as a base and a foundation, and then once they get a little bit of a base, then they can branch out and develop other things. The only thing I will point out, though, is that for a female lifter starting out, one of the accessory things that I might add, obviously you're going to want a few curls and things thrown in no matter what you do, but if you were to go with either one of these programs, I would put an extra focus on posterior chain work, and it's not just because women usually look better if they build up their glutes and hamstrings, but it's because men are already quad dominant naturally, but women tend to be slightly more quad dominant than men, just naturally untrained. And so some extra focus on something like Romanian deadlifts or good mornings, glute ham raises, things like that, would be a high priority and something that I would definitely add or consider adding for a female lifter, unless she's really already a posterior chain dominant squatter, in which case the squats and deadlifts will handle it. But it is something that I would at least look at. So really, to answer that though, you're going to want to add a little bit of accessories to either one no matter what you do. But for a female interested primarily in aesthetics and fitness instead of just developing overall strength, I think the Strong Lift 5x5 is a slightly better program for that goal, but I don't think either one is a bad starting point. All right, guys, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you next time.